Shalom, everybody, from Interfaithfulness. In fact, Shabbat Shalom. We're building bridges where history builds walls. And today we're finishing our current series on the 6 C's of faith sharing. We've been talking about communal suitability, about having congregations that are suitable for our responsibility to welcome other Jewish people to the table of Yeshua faith. We don't want to have congregations that are off-putting, but sometimes we do. And last time we looked at 5 congregations that don't quite get the job done. I reminded you last time that God's purpose for the Messianic Jewish movement is that we would be a sign, a demonstration, and a catalyst of God's consummating purposes for our people. Of course, we want to be congregations where we ourselves worship God in Jewish ways and live a Jewish life. But in terms of those people who are not involved with us, this is our responsibility, to be a sign, a demonstration, and a catalyst of what God is up to among the Jewish people in our day. And therefore, our congregations need to be compatible with that responsibility. I suggested to you last time, furthermore, that in our congregations, Jewish people should feel like they're coming home. They shouldn't feel like they're leaving home or like they're strangers in a strange land. Honored guests in somebody else's world. They're not going to take root in a place where they feel, well, this is not home. They want to go home. And our congregations need to be welcoming our people back home. So, I'm going to look today with you at 5 more models of congregational organization, which I suggest need to be reconsidered, because they're incompatible with the purposes I just outlined. So let's look at them quickly. Number 6 is what I call B'nai First Baptist Church. That's a service where you have a few songs, you have some greetings at the beginning, you have a few songs, you have some announcements and an offering. You have first you'll have a soloist will sing something, then you'll have somebody give a message. Then you have an offering, and you may have an invitation, and you may have a benediction at the end. But what you definitely will have is a church service. I don't care if it's done in Hebrew, if you're wearing a kippah like I am, or if you're wearing 5 talesim. It's not going to feel like Jewish space. And I think that it's not the best way for us to do things. You may be comfortable with a service like that, but I'm not talking about your comfort. I'm talking about the comfort of the Jewish person who doesn't believe as we do yet. The Jewish person who is not well-churched, as some people would say. A Jewish person for whom the very idea of believing in Yeshua is very, very risky. And we don't want to put another stumbling block in these people's ways by having services that feel alien to them. B'nai First Baptist Church won't do the job. Number 7, I want to talk to you about the Antioch-Jerusalem continuum. In the New Testament, there was a church, a very central church in Jerusalem. It was the big one. Thousands and thousands of Jews there, all of them zealous for Torah. But in Antioch, there was another congregation where Paul of Tarsus was sent out from that congregation, Saul of Tarsus. And there were many Gentiles in that community. It was a very cosmopolitan community. And suppose in the middle of the night, God sent some angels to pick up the Jerusalem congregation and all of its people, and move it over to Antioch, and to take the Antioch congregation and move it over to Jerusalem. The next morning, what would you have? You would have 2 irrelevant congregations, because the Jerusalem congregation and the way it conducted itself was tailor-made and suitable and compatible with the kind of people that surrounded them, religious Jews. The Antioch congregation had grown up to be compatible with the kind of people that were around them, a more cosmopolitan crowd. And if you transplant those congregations in opposite environments, they become irrelevant to the environments where they are. Why am I telling you this? I want to remind us that we need to have congregations that are well suited to the actual kinds of Jews we're apt to encounter. not imaginary Jews, actual Jews, the actual Jews that live in the neighborhood of your congregation. Ahavat Zion, the synagogue I led in Beverly Hills, is now in Santa Monica. The first question that needs to be asked is, what kind of Jews do we have around us? And how can we best conduct ourselves and structure our services in ways that these Jewish people will understand and appreciate? That's an important question to ask. And it's a question, the kind of question, that everybody in the Messianic Jewish movement ought to be asking. And these are the kinds of things I talk about because I'm a missiologist, and this is what we do. Number 8, Jew processionism or Jewish roots. Jew processionism is my term for a theory, a viewpoint circulating in our day, which suggests that God is moving all of the nations of the world to an eventual future where everyone is going to practice a form of Judaism. Therefore, if you want to be ahead of the curve, you're going to want to begin to do the Jewish thing, because that's where we're all going anyway. And Jewish roots congregations are like this. People in Jewish roots congregations are endlessly fascinated with the Jewish perspective on everything. And I'm talking about Gentiles now. And many of these people want to find their Jewish roots. Let me make an important distinction. Suppose your name is Patrick O'Connor. With all due respect to the real Patrick O'Connors out there, I've just chosen his name at random. Patrick O'Connor's mother was an O'Shaughnessy. He's as Irish as Paddy's pig, as they used to say. He goes to a Jewish roots congregation, and he's looking for his Jewish roots. Patrick O'Connor doesn't have Jewish roots. Now, Christianity has Jewish roots. Messianic Judaism has Jewish roots. But Patrick does not have Jewish roots. So looking for his Jewish roots is an exercise of futility, and sadly, many times, Gentiles who go to such congregations regret that they're not Jews, and some of them even try to disguise the fact that they're not Jews. That's not healthy. God sent the Messiah into the world so that Gentiles could become part of the people of God without becoming Jews. Read the book of Galatians. If you're a Gentile, God bless you. It's a wonderful thing to be, and you should be sanctifying the name of God and Yeshua the Messiah in your own cultural context without feeling as though God requires of you to embrace some kind of superculture instead. Judaism and Jewish life is not God's superculture for the world. And if you have a congregation where that is the way things are done, most Jewish people will find it a little bit worrisome, because Jewish people are very tolerant, and they would think that Patrick O'Connor should be happy with the person he is and not be somehow leaving it behind in order to embrace another culture as being more religiously authentic. So think again about the Jew processionistic and Jewish roots approach. With all due respect to some of you who are involved in it, I'm only asking you a question: how does this impact our effectiveness with Jewish people who don't believe as we do? That's my question. Should be yours too. We're going to come now to number 9. Number 9 is Fiddler on the Roof set pieces. Sometimes people feel they want to form a congregation which demonstrates that we can do the whole bells and whistles of a really Orthodox Jewish service, which I happen to love. I love Orthodox services. But where we want to demonstrate that we can do all the bells and whistles as well as anybody can. Well, that's lovely. But suppose you're two issues. Number one, we're not apt to attract Orthodox Jewish people. Orthodox Jewish people are not generally in the market for considering Messianic Judaism. But secondly, the people who are going to be possible people that we serve are not Orthodox. And if they wanted an Orthodox-style service, they would be Orthodox Jews. But many of them are conservative, many of them are Reform, many of them don't go to synagogue at all. And so we have a responsibility to form a congregation and a service that they can relate to, and not to use the service as a demonstration of the fact that we know how to do the whole schmear. There's nothing inauthentic about a good conservative style service, which is what I tend to gravitate towards most. And even some reform services, which is not my normal choice, but reform services can have tremendous dignity and Jewish authenticity. But let's not feel as though we need to present a set piece, because when people visit such a congregation, it's like visiting a museum. This is very interesting. I loved looking at it, but nobody wants to live in a museum. We need to have something that lives and breathes along with the public we're trying to reach. Now we come to number 10, our final one, the one new man. And this is such a big subject that I'm not going to deal with it now. I will, within the next week or so, do a Red Door Diary all about the one new man. That's a big subject, and it's an area where there's a lot of controversy, and I would suggest confusion. So we'll look at that together soon. But for now, I want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for being here, and ask you to visit us on YouTube, at Interfaithfulness on YouTube. And if you go there, be sure to subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And for now, Shabbat Shalom from Interfaithfulness, where we're building bridges, where history builds walls.